Knitting Daily has been sponsored in part by Interweave, your craft community for books, magazines, videos, patterns, events, and more. On the web at interweavestore.com.
One of the questions that I hear absolutely most frequently is, how can I make Intarsia easier? If you come on in with me, I've got a little Intarsia swatch that I've been working on. And Intarsia is one of those really great techniques that there's so much creative possibility with, but it has to be said that the actual mechanics of working the technique are not great. You know, you've got all these separate strands of yarn that you're using and twisting at the joins to create those separate color blocks of those separate areas of color. Now, one of the biggest problems is that your yarns get very tangled up because, as you can see, I'm going to work just right across my row here. You know, every time you come to a place where the yarn switches color, you need to twist the old color over the new color before you drop it in order to get a nice smooth join between the colors as opposed to a gap. And so you end up with this big giant tangled mess on the back of your work, especially if you're working with several colors. And you know, there are a lot of different schools of thought on kind of how to manage your different strands of yarn, how to deal with all that. One of my favorite things to do when I'm working with Intarsia is to just cut out all of those trips and techniques and just stick with cutting just 1 yard lengths of yarn, fairly short lengths of yarn, and then you can just let them hang and tangle as they may, as these have obviously. And when you need to, every once in a while, just go ahead and start from your work and just untangle your yarns. Just pull them through. And this kind of pull through Intarsia is just great because you know you don't have to worry as much about your yarns. You don't have to deal with a bunch of fancy tools or anything. And the lengths of yarn are short enough that you can always be sure that you'll tangle them as long as you start from where they join the work. Now, if you do want to use some bobbins, here's my favorite kind of bobbin. And I've just made these at home out of just pieces of poster board. And this shape is perfect because it can hold quite a lot of yarn. I've cut a little notch to wind my yarn into. It can hold up to 1 yard of yarn. And when you're working, you can just let them dangle. And the yarn will always catch in one of these little sort of arms. It won't untangle itself on you. So that's 2 really easy tips to make Intarsia easier.